Thank you for staying with us on Citizen Weekend. As promised, I'm now joined on set by Brenda Masinde, who is the chair of the Kenya Power Board. Good to have you with us this evening. So on Tuesday, you launched the Kenya Power Foundation.
Yes, we did.
Why?
Because we realized that we are in a very unique position as a company. We are one company that has presence literally in every single corner of this republic. And there are places where we go, especially when you're launching the last mile projects, where you realize power was one of the needs that was there, but there's a lot more that the community could do. And we have had a few turbulent years as a company, but right now we are turning a corner and we can see a brighter future ahead. And we thought to ourselves, you know what, we've been talking about enhancing our CSR for a long time. And the idea of our foundation has been mooted severally, and it's never really taken off. But right now, I guess preparation met opportunity. And here we are. Kenya Power Foundation was launched.
Okay. Was the brighter future pun intended?
Totally. And there are a few more where that came from.
All right. So you launched it on Tuesday.
Yes,
and I read that 1% of your after-tax profits for 5 years will go in as seed capital.
Yes, that is the commitment. The commitment is to provide at least 30 million a year or 1% of our after-tax profit, whichever is greater. So if it's a year maybe where we've run a loss and we do not have, we say, you know what, we are an organization that still can manage to give 30 million and then tutajipanga huku nyuma attend to our other responsibilities. But in the year when God has been good to us and we've turned a profit, then 1% of what we have made after we've paid our obligations is going to the foundation. That is, of course, seed capital, because if you look at 30 million, what it can do is a lot, but is also not as much as we would have liked to do. And that is why we thought even with a foundation, it's a good idea, because we can have other partners who are interested in the philanthropic side and may not be interested in funding the business. So you can tell them this is a separate entity from the company, but you can leverage on our networks, our reach in the country. And also, we're 102 years old, our reputation over the years.
So you welcome partnerships?
Yes, in fact, we are encouraging partnerships, because what we can do and what we need to do, we cannot do by ourselves. Yes.
So you've already been involved in corporate social responsibility initiatives. I think I read 30 fully funded scholarships.
Yes.
What was it? You've planted 600,000 trees. You've equipped a number of schools. So why not just continue in the same vein?
It's because most of these were basically, ad hoc interventions. You go to a place, for example, and you're doing your last mile projects and you realize, oh, there is a certain need, so you sponsor that school. So everything has been sort of sporadic and very spontaneous. It's not been systematic. And then you see now those funds are put there as available. So if there's a certain need, you have to look around and find out, do we have an extra million that we can spare for this? So it wasn't dedicated. And then also oversight. People have got their regular day jobs. If you have a foundation, you can have people whose work it is to follow through to make sure that, for example, if we've started something, it's been seen through to the end rather than just something ad hoc. So we thought about it and we realized, you know what, time is ripe. And we are in a situation where even as, not just as a company, even as a society, people are trying to be better corporate citizens. And so it's about time. I mean, Kenya Power has had such a bad rap for such a long time. People need to look at us and realize there's a beating heart somewhere.
Okay. So specifically the projects you're looking to support are around, I read, energy and the environment. So I'm guessing maybe clean energy, cooking in schools, e-mobility. Why particularly that?
With the climate change situation being what it is, our country has been on the forefront of trying to advocate for just better energy use, and not only that, environmental regeneration. So that's why that's a two-pronged approach that we have seen is an opportunity. As a company, we are in the energy sector, we're the customer-facing side of the business. And so we are able to interact with Wananchi and help them, for example, in terms of uptake. I know when our MD was here, I think he said how you can cook githeri for 20 bob. And guys really laughed at him and thought it was a big joke. But indeed, it is true. If you look at how much of your tokens go when you use some of these appliances, you realize, you know what, it's not as expensive as you would have thought. And especially on an industrial scale, if some of the things that were being mooted, the pressure cookers and the other cooking methods that are being used now, the induction ovens and the induction cookers, it use either big sufuria, it uses more rings, smaller sufuria. There's a lot less waste if you look at electricity. But the uptake is slow. So we're thinking we can be part of changing the mindset and helping people appreciate e-cooking better. And not only that, we're moving into e-mobility now. You're looking at other countries where, because we import a lot of our vehicles. And before long, the places where we import vehicles from, most of the cars will be e-vehicles anyway, or at least hybrid. So if we encourage Kenyans to start embracing the technology early, by the time we have no choice but to import these vehicles, we'll find that, you know what, this is something that, it's a breeze. So we feel that we are poised to be able to bring about this culture change, because it won't just be an attitudinal change. It will be a change of how we do things all around.
So sustainability is a big part of this.
It is a huge part of it, because also our business has to diversify. Our selling power is a profitable enterprise, but is a very highly regulated enterprise. We could be making more money if we were allowed to charge as we wanted to, but you do understand that we have EPRA that tells us this is how much you can charge and no more than that. So we have to look at areas that are not regulated to be able to boost our income if we want to survive as a company. So it's also an opportunity for us to sort of spread our wings and fly.
So education is also part of it, I read. So how do you decide who gets assistance and who doesn't?
And that's why we have the foundation, because right now it's basically been, you know, it's a story you've had, or like the two schools that we've been working with, Starehe Boys and Starehe Girls. So it's been very sporadic, you know, it's been on a needies basis, but now I want to have something more structured. So if we benchmark, for example, one of the good examples we have to look at is like the Wings to Fly program, where you actually make a deliberate effort to reach out. And with us, one of the things we want to do is not just reach out to the brightest kids, we want to reach out to kids who need it. And so in the foundation, we're able to come up with a criteria, means list, how you're able to get the kids who need to be on board to come on board. And then there's the other thing, a little bit selfish on our part, but I guess, I mean, what is CSR if it's not a little bit selfish as well? We don't have that many women in the energy sector. And so we have a passion to also see if there are any young girls who want to get into engineering, do not have the means to do it, to be able to help them to also realize that dream, so that even as an industry, we can encourage more and more girls to come into this sector and to thrive. You know, that's part of the things that we keep struggling with in the National Cohesion Commission, because they tell us, your lady quotas are really low, but truth be told, even if we decided this much we're not filling is just for women, there are not enough women to fill those spaces who are qualified at that high level. You'll get a lot of support staff, but not top-notch engineers. So this is something we also hope through the foundation we can sponsor and mentor more young engineers, and especially lady engineers, and try and get them interested in the field.
So there are those who are watching and they're saying, if Kenya Power, you know this, Joy, people online will say, if Kenya Power wants to give back to the community, then lower our token costs, for instance.
That's not going to happen. Primarily because, one, we do not decide how much we sell the power for. That is something that's decided by the regulator, that's EPRA. And secondly, also because power is an expensive venture. Most of the power that we buy, not most, all the power that we buy is denominated in dollars. We have to buy in dollars. Even from Kenyan, they'll sell it to you in US cents per unit. And so we find ourselves in a situation where we have to raise a lot of money to pay them, because there are times where, yes, it's still the 5 cents they were charging us yesterday, but because of the exchange rate, it's an extra billion shillings. Because every time the shilling loses a shilling, we lose $1 billion, basically, on our bottom line. It's that bad. So a year like last year, that's what basically happened. We had a very positive year. We even almost didn't issue a profit warning, and then the shilling took a slide, and there we saw just the numbers disappear into thin air. So we need to raise enough to pay those who are generating the power. And I said we're the customer-facing side of the energy sector. So everyone in the value chain in the energy sector, the ones who are transmitting, the ones who are generating, the ones who the regulator as well, all of them depend on us to collect the revenue that they're sharing as well. So lowering the price of tokens is not going to happen unless the regulator says so, and unless we can afford to, because the entire chain is depending on us to keep the lights on in the country.
All right. And we've had to almost nationwide blackouts in not too long ago. What interventions have you put in place?
Now, I don't know if you saw the tweet by the CEO, Ketrako Mativo, where he's talking about we need more redundancy. Now, there's been a myth in Kenya going on that we've got a lot of power, we've got too much power, actually. And actually, we don't have enough. And what he means by we need more redundancy is that we need, for lack of a, let me put in layman's terms, we need spare power. Right now, what we generate, we use. And if something happens and you have got a slight dip in what you're generating, not even a slight dip, because usually the national blackouts, it would be a considerable dip. We do not have spare power. Now, when you don't have spare power, unfortunately, because you're spending power as you're generating it, if the balance does not match, the safety mechanism of the grid is to shut itself down. And so if one line goes down and it's a substantive enough line, or if there's a power producer who stops producing and it's a substantive chunk, the only safety mechanism that the thing has is to shut it down. It's like in your house. If somebody suddenly draws power, it trips. We call it in the house, it trips. Now in your house, you just go to the mains and you switch it back on and you're back on supply. But when the grid goes down, getting it back up is a science. It's a song and a dance. In fact, I tell people the power goes off, you guys are going to bed because you're like, it's an early night. The rest of us are headed to the office because it takes blood, sweat, and tears to get the grid back up. Because the balance is very, very delicate. It's very difficult. And so we are trying to get better. Part of the intervention that the government is doing is trying to get investment to get more transmission lines. Because if you've got more transmission lines, therefore, you can have one line that has power but nobody is using. So if this one goes down, you just switch to that one and it's seamless. People don't even notice. It's like having backup. So we need to increase that because right now we've got what we call a spinning reserve. The spare is about 4%. Ideally, you should have at least 30% of just redundant power. Is this available? It's not being used, but it's just available. So to get there, the investment is huge. I think last numbers I had from the ministry was 40 billion they need to invest in just the transmission network. We need to get more power producers on board. I know PPPs have gotten such a bad rap, but right now, with the hindsight of what we have learned, the current PPPs that we are negotiating are all, they're so denominated to help Kenyans rather than the previous ones that were to help the investor. So we have learned our lessons. The act that has come in on PPPs as well also gives us the parameters within which we must work. So it's not like before where you just used to decide who you're doing business with. Now there's actually a framework. Treasury is involved. So going forward, we need to get more power producers, more transmission lines, and hopefully the grid will stabilize. But right now we've expanded. Over the last 10 years, we went from having just over 3 million customers now to over 9.6 customers. So the demand is a whole lot more and the network is just the same. So it's struggling just a little bit. The old lady is showing us, I need attention. Yeah. So we need to do something about it and something is being done.
All right. So let's have the last word on the foundation. What's the plan to scale up?
Now, when we start, we have our initial 30 million and we're just thinking like this is just something to sort of get us off the rails. But the policies have been worked out. We have a board of trustees in the foundation where the recruitment will be done. So in the next 2 years, then you will see now concrete programs that are attached to it. Because the launch was something to sort of get it off the ground. You know, when you talk about something for so long, until you do something and say, we have started, sometimes it remains being just talked about. Now, one thing we're also very keen on, for example, you talked about the trees. In Nairobi, we have gotten such a bad rap about cutting the trees in the city, but we have a commitment to plant all the trees we are cutting in Nairobi, we are planting times 10 somewhere else in some forest. And the government has actually allocated us 2 forests in Baringo and in Kericho County, where we are actually reforesting. So towards, let's say in the next 2 years, and talking up a lot more of what we are doing, we hope Kenyans will be able to see the more human face of Kenya Power, and not just the, you know, give us our money or else we disconnect your power side of Kenya Power.
All right. Joy Brenda Masinde, Chair, Kenya Power Board. She says Kenya Power has a heart.
We do. And we love you, Kenyans.
All right. So thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us on the Kenya Power Foundation tonight. I will release you, but you stay tuned because Citizen Weekend continues on the other side of this break.